Hey, everybody, it's Ryan. Thanks for downloading today's show. And just a reminder, as always, Wake Up War Chant is brought to you by our friends at For the Table, Madison Social, Central and Township, in the heart of College Town.
Good morning, Tallahassee. Time for Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen, from Tallahassee to Thomasville and from coast to Atlantic coast, it's time to Wake Up War Chant here on 97.9 ESPN Radio, and it's a very happy Wednesday morning, July the 26th, to you and yours. You're currently listening to the voice of Ryan Kelly. I'm the director of digital media at warchant.com. Drew Hicken, as always, on the other side of the glass. How are you this morning, sir?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm fine, buddy. Good to have you back. And, well, good to talk with you guys here on Wednesday morning, 6 a.m., 97.9 ESPN Radio. And, of course, the streaming devices, the WTSM app, the TuneIn Radio app, all that jazz. Podcast, you probably have a place you go and get it by now. Thanks so much for doing that. And if you like the show, rate and subscribe us. It always helps out us, helps you out a little as well. Then, of course, radio@warchant.com is your email address to get here. That being said, at Wake Up War Chant, it's your your Twitter account to get to us. Good show for you today. Gene Williams is going to join us. Of course, our first edition of the top 40 players of 2017 has hit warchant.com. You're going to want to check that out, especially if you're a premium member. Lots of good stuff, the debate, the discussion, as always. If you're a long-time listener, a long-time reader, should I say, you probably usually look forward to those. Of course, it's our own Gene Williams, our own Irish Affel, and 97.9's Jeff Cameron, battling it out, doing a little bit of debate on who is the best there. But that's not what I wanted to talk to you about immediately this morning, because I feel like there's something that Ryan Clark has put on warchant.com that really kind of hits the nail on the head. Now, it's premium content, so we're not going to go completely into the whole details of what he's got here. But I will tell you that there is a great question posed by him today as he does these segment previews and these position previews for 2017. We all really like DeAndre Francois. We all think he can be a really good player. We all think that he's got a lot of skills that can really be what Florida State needs at the quarterback position. He's smart. He's athletic. He throws a decent ball. He's good with his feet. He makes good decisions. Got a lot of things going for him. But, and knock on wood with me on this but, what happens in a world where DeAndre Francois goes down? And that's a tough pill to swallow, just because, first of all, it seems almost impossible that DeAndre Francois is going to get hit and knocked down and have as many chances for injury as he did last season. That is one tough cookie. The fact that guy went in and got hit again and again and again and again and again. Listen, I would not do that. I don't know about you, Drew. I don't know if I could literally go back in there. I don't care how tough I'm trying to be. I don't care how much I'm trying to get the leadership of a team. There are times last year where DeAndre Francois got up where I just would have stayed down. And I know part of that's just because I don't have that football player mentality. I don't have that killer edge like that. But, dude, a couple of those shots they did not look fun, I guess, is the easiest way of putting that.
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, especially that Miami game. It was brutal. I mean, it was brutal. It was a game you saw Kaya get his tooth knocked out. You saw Francois look like he got his ribs broken like 3 or 4 times. That one particular hit where they just planted him on his shoulder. It was wild, man. But like you said, he's a tough dude. Props to him. I think he earned a lot of people's respect, not only through his play, but through his toughness the entire year.
Yeah, there were times where it looked less like he was playing football and more like he was the stunt double in a Rocky movie. I mean, he just took haymaker after haymaker after haymaker, that dude did. And this is where, you know, a lot of people kind of figured DeAndre Francois was going to win the quarterback battle last year. Even before Sean McGuire's injury, people just kind of knew, you know, good for Smag. We love the guy. But DeAndre Francois is the future. You probably need to start playing for that right now, and you feel like you can play him without that big of a drop-off immediately. But this is the year where not having Sean McGuire hurts you. This is the year where, regardless of if he started last season or not, you knew you were going to have hell to pay for it. Because a world without Sean McGuire, a steady, reliable backup that you've had since 2014, is a world where you raise yourself a couple eyebrows.
I agree, and I think another spot where this comes back and it hurts you a little bit. Obviously, there's no debate of what needed to be done, but it's a shame that DeAndre Johnson, the things that happened with him that happened, because he would have been a viable backup as well. I think a lot of people, especially, I don't know if you've watched the Last Chance U or whatever on Netflix. I know a lot of people have watched that and have asked the question, oh, well, could he have vied for a starting spot? I still think Francois would be the guy.
Yeah.
But I think Johnson would have been a fine number two. Probably not Sean McGuire. Like you said, I mean, Sean McGuire was probably as good as a backup gets in the country. For all the Sean McGuire slander that went around, he was probably about the best you're going to do at a backup quarterback position.
And myself included, because I was not, when the quarterback battle began in 2015, I was not a Sean McGuire fan. And in my defense, I guess I'll say this, given the limited sample size we had, the Clemson game where he did not look great and the spring game where he looked terrible, and then kind of came out and deflected a lot of that criticism, it was hard to kind of say, yeah, that's the guy at the moment. But 2015, he proves that he can be that guy for you. He proves that he can be a resilient starting quarterback for you. And now you're looking at a world where J.J. Cosentino's kind of in that boat before Sean McGuire took over the 2015 season. The limited sample size that we have seen of J.J. is not good. I don't think anyone would be able to doubt that. We don't know what Bailey Hockman brings to the table. We don't know what James Blackman brings to the table. We also don't know if Jimbo would be ready to burn a red shirt for either of them. We obviously are living in a world where DeAndre Johnson and Malik Henry are not options. This is why Florida State recruits a quarterback every single year, a minimum of one. Because you look, you blink, and you see Florida State's depth chart, and you think to yourself, a redshirt junior that I'm not sure how great I feel about. A freshman with a lot of raw potential in James Blackman, a freshman who is probably, despite being a lefty, a little bit more pro-style than the rest of these guys, and Bailey Hockman. But again, just freshmen, guys who maybe aren't completely ready to go in and be ready to go. If Jameis Winston isn't starting until he's a redshirt freshman, I find it very, very hard to believe that Jimbo's going to want to burn a red shirt for one of these guys who are true freshmen, neither of which are, and no offense to Blackman or Hockman, neither of which were five-star super elite talents.
It's kind of wild to see the way that the depth chart has worked out, because you remember back in that cycle where we were bringing in all those guys and you were having the Francois and the Henrys and the Johnson. There was all that discussion. Are we going to lose? Particularly, I think at the time we were most worried about losing Francois. Are we going to lose Francois because we're bringing in two other guys and having and highly touted? It wasn't like they were just, we're bringing in some schmucks.
Oh, no. Just because they weren't, five-star Rivals 100s, they were not bad players, neither of them.
It's just wild. That's why, like you said, that's why you recruit for these things. I've said it about 1 billion times on this show. I think that the Justin Fields recruitment is about as big as it gets. It's just a battle you need to win. I know you jumped in it late, but at this point, I don't see who else you're going after on this cycle. And so if you don't get anyone else, regardless of whether or not you're going to redshirt Fields this freshman year or what have you, whatever the plan is for him if we do get him, you're looking at a situation where you would be stuck, kind of. You would be stuck again with this same, I'll go ahead and say, in my mind, nightmare scenario that could possibly happen this year. Because, You said it. I don't think a lot of people feel very confident if J.J. Constantino's got to go in there with the game on the line. And I think you saw even last year with McGuire, sports is such a thing of mentality and confidence. And I think you saw 2015 Sean McGuire was a lot better than 2016 Sean McGuire, because 2015 Sean McGuire won that job. And he thought he was better, knew he was better, won that job, won the team over. But in 2016, the times he came in, while he's a viable backup, a lot of the times when he came in against Miami or whenever in a crunch time kind of situation, if Francois got hurt or got his helmet knocked off or whatever, he looked a little shaky. And I think half of that is obviously reps. I think the other half of that, though, is confidence level. And I would be shocked to sit here and tell you, I won't sit here and tell you guys that I think J.J. Constantino's confidence level is through the roof. I don't even know how much belief the kid has in himself. I'm not going to sit here and say that because necessarily I don't know him. I don't know him personally. I don't know how he feels, but I'd be awfully surprised to hear differently. He hasn't even been a guy who's been a viable option at backup before. So I think that's a really, really big deal. I think a lot of people would be that. To me, you talk about the offensive line, you can talk about the secondary, you can talk about whatever you want to talk about. I think, knock on wood, everybody knows the worst case scenario would be Francois going down.
First of all, let me clarify something. When you were talking about two quarterbacks coming in, you were not talking about Hockman and Blackman. You were talking about Johnson and Henry, right?
Right, which were both highly
touted
touted
guys. Who were both
guys.
five-star blue chippers. I, for whatever reason, thought you said Blackman and Hockman for a second. And I was like, I don't remember that. And then literally as soon as it left my mouth, I said, I better correct myself or else people are going to roast me for that. So yes. High quality, Rivals 100, 5-star blue chipper guys. Both of them. Let's just make that clear. Okay. I'm with you in that it's quarterback. Duh. Of course it's the most important position on the field. Outside of very, very notable exceptions, like I think Florida State over the last couple of years where you had a superstar at running back maybe is a notable exception of the guy that needs to stay healthier than the quarterback. And that's still a maybe. The fact that Dalvin Cook was as good as he was, and you even had to think about that for a second, the fact that you'd have to think, well, would I rather Francois go down or Dalvin go down? Obviously, you never want to see anybody get hurt, but if you have to play that hypothetical in your mind, the fact that you would even have a little bit of a debate in your head, I think says how much and how important quarterback is in today's football. But I think it's directly tied to one of the things you came up with, the offensive line. And when we talk to Gene Williams in a second and we chit-chat about, the top 100 players, it's hard to rank this offensive line because it's so not settled in yet. They got to find chemistry really quickly against a really good front seven in Alabama. I don't think I have to tell many folks just how good they are. This is the season. I hate to be, fatalist. I hate to be the guy who's just putting it right here, but can you protect your quarterback? This to a certain extent, and don't get me wrong, there are other questions. But if you answer that question with yes, that means your offensive line is better. That checks off that side of the ball. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, and you brought up Alabama. Think about. You said how big is the quarterback position in today's football? Show me a national champion other than a team built like Alabama who hasn't had a great quarterback, especially in college football. It's just the way it is. You get that generational type talent at quarterback, you've got a shot. I don't really care. Again, unless you're Alabama, who's winning with the guys that they've won with in the past. No offense to Coker, he didn't exactly light it up or anything. Or who was the guy? Sims. It's just very important. It's very pertinent to keep Francois healthy, especially when you don't have a lot behind him.
The Alabama quarterback graveyard is a rather interesting one. It's a weird one of guys with swoop haircuts and, 3-star ratings. Let's think about it. It's Sims, it's Coker, it's Hurts, it's McCarron, it's McElroy, And people forget, who was Nick Saban's first quarterback at Alabama? There's your pop quiz. If you want to know how little Nick Saban's quarterbacks mean, I guess, in terms of just don't screw up, when Nick Saban and his gang was a game away in 2008 from playing for the national championship, who was Nick Saban's quarterback, Drew?
As long as it wasn't, I don't know. I'm just saying, as long as it wasn't John Parker Wilson.
It was John Parker Wilson. If you want to know just how, sure, whatever, Nick Saban's done. And I do believe that's done on purpose. I think that Nick Saban has built a system, as much as it is modern football, as much as it is, elite five-star blue-chip talents, as much as it is hanging your hat on defense, being more physical, dominating the edge in the trenches. And I know to a certain extent that's old-school football. But the fact that he, in today's modern era of football, has just said, listen, as long as you don't screw up, you can be my quarterback, I think is kind of crazy. And that, to me, is one of the more impressive things about Alabama that we don't talk about.
But I also think, if you really think about it, it's genius.
It is.
Because if it works out for you, when you recruit like you do at Bama, it's going to work out for you. Because instead of depending on a one-position guy per cycle to blossom into this amazing quarterback that you need to carry you to a national title, you have 5 stars around him at every other position. And so instead of relying on one guy, you got 20 others that you're like, as long as we got half of those guys, or 12 or 13 of them, as long as we got, all those guys performing at a high level, we're going to be all right, because we have all this other talent surrounding him. So when you have the offense that's built like that, that's not necessarily relying on having a generational type talent at quarterback, I think if it can work out, it only plays to your benefit, especially because you're playing a hand that no one else is playing.
Depth a big deal for that game against the Alabama Crimson Tide. DeAndre Francois needs to be ready. So does that line, because after that, it's a bit of a question. We're going to get you caught up on everything you missed last night. This, ladies and gentlemen, is While You Were Sleeping.
Hello. Good morning. Wake up. Wake up. Wake me up. Good morning. Good morning.
What happened last night?
We start on the West Coast, where the Giants get themselves a victory over the Pittsburgh Pirates, a big one at that. 11-3, San Fran over the Buccos. Meanwhile, in Chicago, Windy City Series, the Cubbies beat the White Sox 7-2. Chris Bryant, believe it or not, actually ejected in this game. First time he's ever been thrown out of a game. Not a guy who debates balls and strikes much, but was not happy about a K call that rung him up about midway through this game. Yankees beat the Reds 4-2, and how about this, Drew? The Yankees end up scoring the go-ahead run in this game on a triple play. A bases-loaded triple play scores a go-ahead run. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
Nope, sure haven't.
So, Yankees win. They should, because the Reds are awful. By the way, I forgot to mention, puts the Cubs 5 games above 500. Playing the White Sox might be just what the doctor ordered. Yeah, I know they lost yesterday, or 2 days ago, but what you gonna do? Brewers beat the Nationals in Washington 8-0. It's the Houston Astros defeating the Philadelphia Phillies 5-0. Blue Jays over the A's in Toronto 4-1. Cleveland beats the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim 11-7 at Jacobs Field. The Tigers, well, we dropped a series to the Royals 3-1. That's your final score at Comerica Park. Tampa Bay beats Baltimore 5-4 at the Trop yesterday evening. The Fish, the Marlins 4-10. Rangers all over Miami and the ballpark at Arlington. The Cardinals defeat the Rockies 3-2 last night. The Braves over the D-backs in Arizona 8-3. Mariners over the Red Sox 6-5 in Seattle. The Dodgers defeat the Minnesota Twins 6-2 in Los Angeles at Dodger Stadium. And finally, the New York Metropolitans over the San Diego Padres on the West Coast 6-5 last night. When we come back, it's Gene Williams talking a little bit about the top 40 players of 2017. Stick around. It's Wake Up War Chant 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Yes, Florida State just landed a 5-star commitment.
I don't see that anywhere online. How did you get that news so fast?
I'm on the new warchant.com app. I get news updates and scores pushed to my phone instantly.
How much does it cost?
It's free. Just go to iTunes or the Google Play Store, type in Warchant, and install it on your phone. That's it.
A free app that keeps me constantly up to date on Florida State sports and recruiting? Wow, that makes it incredibly easy to follow my Seminoles and never miss out.
With the app, you'll also get quick access to all the stories and features on Warchant, including the ever-popular message boards that feature thousands of fans talking about the Noles.
Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole source.
Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio is presented by TNT Golf Cart Super Center, your one-stop shop for all your outdoor entertainment. Here's Ryan Kelly.
Beer fans, listen up this Wednesday. That's tonight, 7 to 9 p.m. Madison Social, pairing up with the folks over at Ballast Point Brewing Company for the Social Drinker Appreciation Night. You sign up at socialdrinkerappreciationnight.com. You wear any of the Madison Social Drinker shirts, and you have a chance to sample 8 of Ballast Point's beers and get some of their sweet, sweet stuff. And by the way, when you're done with all that, they're going to give you a card to head on over to Township, and you get a liter of Ballast Point Grapefruit for half price, ladies and gentlemen. And that's the chance to win a Ballast Point prize pack as well. So make sure you're in on that. Welcome back to Wake Up War Chant here on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Of course, it's an annual feature, and longtime readers of warchant.com always look forward to it. It's the top 40 players of 2017. Oh, gosh. Gene, I'll tell you what, Gene Williams jumps aboard from, of course, the man of warchant.com. We've been talking so much recruiting, I'm already in 2018.
Yeah, that'd be a little hard to come up with the 2018 list of top players just yet, but yeah, we're on 2017 now. Just started that this week, so it's fun. It's we did our first one earlier this week, and people say they love getting this feature, and it's a lot of fun. Myself, Ira Schafel, managing editor at Warchant, and of course Jeff Cameron right there at ESPN Radio here on this station. We all get to vote on this, and we have a little it's fun going back and forth and seeing how we all evaluate this stuff. So. It's always a great time, and it's another sign that we're getting ever closer to the season.
Very, very close. And, of course, this works about the way you would think. You put together all 3 guys' ballots. You get a composite vote, and that's how you line up this top 40. Of course, if you want to hear Gene talk about some of these guys, and if you want to go out and see Gene, and maybe you live in the Central Florida, Orlando area, Gene, before we get going, I'll let you plug it real quick. I know you're going to be up there with the Seminole Club not too long from now.
Yeah, actually I'll be there with Ira Schafel, who I just mentioned. We're going to be in Orlando tomorrow for it's called Countdown to Kickoff. Jimbo Fisher will be down there if you've ever been to the Harry Buffalo, which is right down there on Church Street. And you can go to GameDaySaturday.com. You can buy tickets in advance, $20. You get Jimbo Fisher, big party going on there, all kind of games and cool events. So you want to get down there, hear Jimbo Fisher. And I'm kind of the warm-up band. I get to go there, talk for about a half hour, myself and Ira, a little bit about FSU football and get everybody kind of warmed up for Jimbo for be the featured band to come on and give you the rundown, which is probably the last chance you'll get to hear Coach Fisher preview preseason practice. I figure as soon as he gets back into Tallahassee, he's going in full preseason camp mode. So it's a great way to get a rundown. And of course, 100% of those charities go to the Kids First Fund. So you're doing a really good thing there by contributing some money and going down and hearing Coach Fisher.
Great cause, and of course, I mean, you could go out to Church Street for lunch at noon, and you'd have yourself a good time. So head on out there, have yourself a good time. And, I mean, if you're going to talk Florida State sports, but you're going to be the opening act, I would imagine that the head coach of Florida State is the one guy you'd be more than thrilled to be the opening act for.
Yeah, I don't mind taking a second fiddle to him, but it's kind of like, those bands you go to and you just want to get that opening act out of there so you can get the main guy, and that's fine. I don't mind doing that. It's great. I think and also I think we got a scheduled interview for Coach Fisher down there for Warchant Radio that we should have on Friday's show if all goes well. So looking forward to being able to talk to Coach again.
Coach twice in 3 weeks. That's what we give you here on Wake Up Warchant. That's why we deliver, folks. All right, let's jump into this top 40. We'll start with number 40. I'll go through some of the highlights of some of these guys. And number 40, a guy that I agree with Jeff maybe shouldn't be on this top 40. I know he's number 40 according to you. He's number 34 according to Ira. George Campbell, a wide receiver that it just kind of never really has seemed to come together for. If it does come together, maybe I'd reevaluate that. But I'm kind of at that point with George Campbell where I'll believe it when I see it, Gene.
Yeah, and that's why I put him at 40. I kind of struggled. I had him off on there. But, I mean, that's the thing. And I think what really probably pushed him down is the last thing we heard from Coach Fisher, that he may not be ready for camp, and you just kind of roll your eyes and go, here we go again. A guy with so much potential, former 5-star recruit that they desperately need, because I think he brings something to that receiver core that maybe they don't have with the other guys. I think a guy with his size who can stretch the field. But in the back of my head, I'm like, boy, if he could just get healthy and live somewhat up to his potential, what a valuable asset he could be to that offense this year. So that's why I figured I had him on the list, because I think there's a shot that he could really kind of break out this season.
Couple linebackers right after that. It's Emmett Rice, and then it's Josh Brown. Josh Brown's the guy I kind of wanted to keep an eye on, in that there was so much talk about him going into that 2016 season, and now he's a backup.
Yeah, I'd say I think it's the hardest to rank these guys, because you're going between guys that could, really key backups. Who's going to be able to really maybe be that first linebacker off the bench of those linebackers, and how valuable going to be? You got to put into account special teams, especially that linebacker position. I think what really gets you with Brown is, depending on we'll see how the depth chart shakes out. But I know last year he was the primary backup to Jacob Pugh, who obviously was also your spring MVP, won the Heisman Award, and that's a position, that buck position, they're not always on the field. So when you got a guy who's a senior, who's a really good player, who has all that experience, it's going to be, and maybe he's on the field for half the plays, it's going to be tough for a backup to get on the field. But like you said, he really kind of looked good last spring, showed some flashes this spring. I think Mr. Brown's going to be a good player, but it's probably a year away before you really see a lot of him.
Jumped on down to number 35 is Josh Kaindoh, who ends up on the list, a true freshman, hasn't even played a snap. Jeff doesn't have him ranked. Ira has him 36th. You have him 28th, Gene. I got to ask, why so high?
Yeah, that's the one thing we went through this list I just totally disagreed with Jeff on. I just think you really missed the boat there. And I'll tell you why, because I think that is a position that has proven time and time again that a true freshman can make a real impact. And it's happened 2 years in a row, Ryan. Look at last year, obviously, Brian Burns, a freshman All-American. I think he set the record for the most sacks by any freshman in college football last year. And the year before, Josh Sweat started a bunch of games and made a real impact. So, and Kaindoh may be the most physically capable of any of those guys coming in right away. And there's no depth behind, really, at this point, behind Brian Burns and Josh Sweat. So I think he's a guy who's going to get some reps. They've shown that they are willing to rotate defensive ends at that position. So I really think he will have a pretty significant impact this season.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to see, I hate to play mediary here, but I do kind of see both sides of that, and that, Jimbo Fisher sometimes does hesitate to play freshmen, and at the other time, at certain positions, like defensive end, it's a place where, you mentioned it, Brian Burns, in a place that it didn't really seem like it was going to be that big of a need last year. Brian Burns jumps in, and he's a star every time he hits the field.
Yeah, and I think if you're good at that position, because it basically, going after the quarterback, if you have God-given skills in certain situations, it doesn't matter. You don't need to really necessarily have to worry too much about contain or other responsibilities. I mean, to the next level, to become a great defensive end of DeMarcus Walker, then you have to be a full player. But I think to at least have that impact, if you're really good at one thing, I think you can get out there, and I think Kaindoh can do that. Now, we've seen if you're a wide receiver, you're a true freshman, unless your name's Rashad Green, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of playing time.
Let's jump on over to 33 and 32. That's offensive lineman Josh Ball and center Alec Eberle. Offensive line, not a lot of spots, but plenty of guys with key roles to play. I don't know if I'd consider Alec Eberle, in a top 10 of top players, but if he ends up being the guy under center, he's got to be one of your top 10 most important players. Maybe not in that top 10 best, but you need him to perform if he's the guy under center.
What's so crazy about this voting is because, at this stage, that job's not secure. I mean, there could legitimately three guys. You got Bavion Johnson, who's a former number one ranked center in the country coming out of high school 2 years ago. You've got, obviously, Andrew Baselli. We know his bloodline, and he got a lot of reps with the first team in the spring. while Alec Everly was recovering for hip surgery. I wouldn't be surprised if Everly started every game this season. I wouldn't be surprised if he got beat out and never started a game. So that's why it's so difficult to rank him at this stage without really seeing how it's going to play out during August preseason practices. And, or it could be a situation, maybe that first game they want to get him out there because of his experience, but I don't know what you think, Ron. I just have a hard time seeing with a lot of talent at that center position that Everly's going to start the entire season.
I'm with you, and I agree with you. I do end up thinking Bavion or Baselli get that job, but at the end of the day, whoever it is starting under center, you need consistency from them, and that's something that I don't think Florida State hasn't had. I know I'm about to say a mouthful, but consistent consistency. Because you look at 2014 when you really kind of shuffle around until Cam Irving moves towards the end of the season. 2015, you switched a couple guys. 2016, Everly kind of was hurt at times and kind of played up and down. You haven't had real consistent center play, honestly, since Brian Stork walked across the aisle in 2013.
Yeah, and I know we talked about it last week, Ryan. I think that's a position that Rick Trickett puts so much on. You have to not only be physically capable of being at the point of attack. You've got to be able to pull. You got to be able to make smart and make all those line calls. There's a lot on that center position, the way he runs that system. So it's a daunting job, and the good news is for Florida State, I think they've got 3 guys that can compete for it.
Finally, did want to mention before we go, Gene, I did want to actually jump back a little bit to Amir Rasul, number 34. It's hard for a guy who's a sophomore in this gigantic shuffle between Jacquez Patrick, who's the veteran, between Cam Akers, the guy that everybody wants to see and everybody's talking about. It's hard to rank these running backs, I'd imagine, just about more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, here's a guy you've really hardly ever seen play, but he's the one Jimbo Fisher never leaves out of a discussion. If you bring up running backs and who's looking good, he always mentions Amir Rasul. And there's an interesting debate on the Tribal Council yesterday about who's the fastest player on the team. And my first thought was Amir Rasul. I think he ran at 10.4 or something in high school. He's got some legitimate big-time wheels and breakaway speed. I'd love to be able to see it, but like you said, we don't know how that running back position is going to play out. Or if there's an injury to a Patrick or a Cam Akers, Rasul might become a pretty regular guy in that rotation. So we just have to wait and see. But I think he's talented enough that I think he warranted being in that top 40.
I'm with you there, especially Florida State could use a burner because I don't feel like Florida State's had a straight burner at running back for quite some time. Dalvin had explosiveness, but just that speed back, that nice – I mean, they've had the change of pace power back in Patrick for a while, but the change of pace just guy that if he finds a hole, he's going to blur past you. You haven't seen that from Florida State in a bit.
No, that's true. And I got to think the last one was I'm drawing up a complete blank on the kid from Madison County that was here a few years ago, Jimbo Fisher earlier. Who am I thinking of there? He had some pretty good speed.
Madison County. Oh, boy. Great radio.
I hate this. We're taping this late at night, so it's drawn. I can't believe I'm not thinking of his name, but he had some big-time speed. Had the big run against Miami a few years ago, got back-to-back runs. You know what I'm talking about?
Chris Thompson,
there we go. I think he had big-time speed, but you're probably right. Since he's probably the last one that had kind of that fourth gear to really break away from folks.
Chris Thompson's one of those guys that always kind of sit back, and I always forget that he's from Madison, but he's one of those guys that you just kind of think, I mean, and he's had a decent career in the NFL. He's stayed on a consistent roster in Washington, but what might have been had he consistently stayed healthy throughout his career?
Yeah, he was quite special. I remember that injury he got down in Miami, and he's one of those guys they've been so blessed at running back under Jimbo Fisher, and he's just another one of that long line.
My favorite run of his actually wasn't the Miami one. I know a lot of people loved that, but when he juked the Wake Forest player out of his mind in 2012, remember that just scorcher of a noon kick, and everybody was kind of sleepy. Nobody really wanted to be there, and he just back-to-back drives. He takes him to the house, and he just makes a nasty cut to go into the end zone. I mean, he was a special player, and there's a lot of special players in this top 40 list. Of course, we're not going to give them all to you because there's premium content there at warchant.com. There's the plug, ladies and gentlemen. But if you want to get behind and get some access to this, especially as fall camp begins, WarChant30, there's your promo code at checkout to give you free 30-day premium access to warchant.com and all the good premium stuff we've got coming up. Boss man, thank you so much as always.
Hey, thank you, Ryan.
All right, folks, when we come back, there's more on the other end. It's Wake Up Warchant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio is presented by TNT Golf Cart Supercenter, your one-stop shop for all your outdoor entertainment. Here's Ryan Kelly.
Welcome back. Wake Up War Chant 97.9 ESPN Radio, brought to you by For the Table, Madison Social, Central Township. Robert Griffin III gets a chance to work out with the Chargers as his first opportunity to work out with a team this offseason. Of course, Robert Griffin III trains here in Florida with former Browns assistant Pep Hamilton. Has been known to actually train sometimes around Florida State. Been known to be in this area sometimes, but Robert Griffin III, I hope it works out for him. I know he kind of let things go to his head a little bit. I know those injuries really, really stunk, but I just feel like I don't want him to join that long list of, I don't want to say necessarily busts, but guys that you just knew were going to be better in the pros than they were coming out of college. I feel like everybody's got those one or two that they would be willing to admit, boy, I was certainly wrong about that guy. And I don't know if you've ever had one of those, just like a quarterback or a star wide receiver or running back. You just thought, man, he is going to tear it up at the next level, and it just didn't happen.
I can't necessarily think of anybody off the top of my head. I'm sure there has been. I think especially for Robert Griffin, after his rookie year, just nobody thought his career was going where it went. You could say it was the knee injury and things like that, and maybe it was handled incorrectly. I'm not sure, but I don't know what happened. It's unfortunate, and he seems like he's a nice enough guy too. You hope it works out for him. You really do.
It seems like he's kind of learned his lesson because there was that little bit of a time where he just seemed so concerned with, I've got to make the RG3 brand and all that. And remember, he had the shoes, and it was like, dude, you played a year. Calm down. It's going to be okay, I promise you. But I just hope he doesn't join that list because I'll be honest with you, the super embarrassing one on me, and again, this is a much younger me, so have mercy. I knew Jimmy Clausen was going to be a star when he went in the league. I knew he was going to be a star when he went to Carolina, and he was terrible. Terrible. So many bad NFL quarterback. I'll be honest with you. I thought Christian Ponder was going to be better. And I know a lot of that has to do with the sack in his elbow. I know a lot of that has to do with something he can't control. But, man, there was a time, towards the end of that, especially towards the end of his junior year in 2009, where people just thought, this kid's going to be a star. An absolute star.
I could agree with you on Christian. I think also maybe like a guy like Brady Quinn, maybe people thought would be a little bit better. And I'll say it, I know a lot of people don't like him. I necessarily didn't love him at Florida State, but I feel like had EJ had gone to the right situation and kind of maybe got to chill for a couple of years, maybe learn how to actually, throw a football. He just had all the tools, He had so many tools, and I feel like maybe somewhere down the line it could have panned out for him. But again, I'm reaching here. I'm just looking for things to talk about.
Maybe. I will say this: you bring up a good point with Brady Quinn. Brady Quinn, of the list, the boulevard of broken Browns quarterbacks, Brady Quinn certainly did seem like the guy. If it was going to be anybody, it was going to be him, right? He's the good quarterback from Notre Dame. Remember, the guy was built like a tank. He seemed to make okay decisions. Even then, is not even close to the worst Browns quarterback over the last, 15 years. But he just seemed like he was going to be the dude. I'm with you on Brady Quinn. That's probably the biggest one that everybody just kind of knew, right? Everybody just kind of thought, he came out with, what was it? Didn't he did like a big article spread in one of those big magazines, and like America Fell in Love. I think it was Men's Health. And, everybody thought, oh gosh, this is the next great All-American quarterback. And, well, he's a good analyst. I'll give him that.
I know a lot of people thought there was a chance he was going to go to the Jaguars there for a little bit when he continued to slide a tad bit far because people thought he was going real high.
Yeah.
And I think he had kind of like a Johnny Manziel-ish type fall. I feel like he went in like the 20s maybe.
Well, Why is it the Browns always take the guys that have that fall? It's just like, yeah, we got him.
Yeah.
We got him, just rubbing those hands together. Fall, Johnny, fall. Fall, Brady, fall.
Maybe they should have listened to the rest of the leagues. People are picking up on things that I guess the Browns just aren't picking up on.
Brandon Whedon's going to fall right into our lap, boys. Good stuff. But yeah, rooting for RG3. Hope he gets it worked out. We're putting a bow on this thing right after this, so stick around. This is Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio is presented by TNT Golf Cart Supercenter, your one-stop shop for all your outdoor entertainment. Here's Ryan Kelly.
Shorty get down, good Lord. Baby got 'em open all over town.
Put a ball on it, Wake Up War Chant 97.9 ESPN Radio, brought to you by our friends at For the Table. Before we run, a great invention has been brought into the world. The folks over at Lyft, of course, the Uber rival, now have a mode that's being tested out in somewhere in a small town in California that might be rolled out nationwide here soon, that allows Lyft to go into taco mode. And what I mean by that is, in the late hours of the evening, if you feel so inclined to have some Taco Bell, you may slide into taco mode, and any Lyft driver around can give you a lift to your late-night Taco Bell run. Great invention, Drew, or greatest invention?
More than likely the greatest achievement of mankind, if you ask me. I would put it right near the top. Space travel,
the wheel,
reaching the moon,
fire,
things like that.
Right up there. Who hasn't just said, you know what? I really don't feel like driving to Taco Bell at 2 a.m. There are certain people who maybe want to go to Taco Bell who shouldn't be driving at 2 a.m. after some activities they've been doing. And now the good folks over there have allowed us to do what we need to do. Get Taco Bell no matter what state of mind we're in, no matter what day or time it is. It's an innovation. An innovation. Historians will be talking about that for years and years to come.
It should be in our kids' history books as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly.
It'll be a monumental breakthrough in human history. And really, if you think about it, it can only go up from here. Things can only get better. We can only get a little rounder and rounder. And, I think things are going well here in our culture.
Everything is possible now that I can hit a button on my phone and get a chicken quesadilla anytime I want. That's all I'm saying. Before we go, another weird story for you. How about this? Warner Brothers is, of course, doing some reshoots for Justice League. That's no big deal. Movies do reshoots all the time, except for Henry Cavill, the dude who plays Superman, is working on another movie that's required him to grow a mustache, and Warner Brothers is prepared to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get rid of his mustache, CGI out a mustache in post-production. Imagine being so important to a movie or to a project. They're like, yeah, we'll just take your mustache out in post. That's pretty impressive. That's got to make you feel pretty good about your job security.
Or just the status of your mustache, maybe. I don't know. I mean, maybe some real questions need to be asked there. That's an interesting one. I haven't heard that before.
I will say this. The pictures have come out of Henry Cavill's mustache. I forget what movie he's working on at the moment that's made him grow this, but it's aggressive. It's a thing.
It's got a curl. It's got the curls going on.
He doesn't quite have the curl, but let's just say he's got one heck of a caterpillar growing on his face. Like, it's impressive. I will give the man some credit. Big show today. Of course, our thanks to Gene Williams. Thanks to Drew. Thanks to a lot of folks. This has been a fun week. We've had a guest every single show this week. We've had a lot of different folks coming in. So, overall, good stuff. Tomorrow, I'm not sure completely what we have on the docket for you tomorrow. I think we're trying to get Ryan Clark in for you tomorrow. But as you heard a little bit earlier on in the show, Friday, we've got yourself an interview with Jimbo Fisher slated up. So make sure you're around for that. Again, my thanks to Gene. My thanks to you, Drew.
Thank you.
And my thanks to you guys for listening. Mike and Mike's up next here on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.
Hey, thanks for downloading today's show. If you haven't already, why don't you rate and subscribe us? We certainly do appreciate it, and of course, we appreciate you listening anyway, so just go ahead and click that right there. You know you want to. Come on. Come on. Thanks again for letting us do the show. We love giving you all the football, basketball, baseball, recruiting, all year round. Not just football season, not just spring practice, but hopefully giving you the freshest and newest FSU content every day. Thanks, guys.